Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. My name is C.C. Péan, and I am your chef and your host for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. I'm excited about this week's dish because it is another example of creating a heart-healthy, nutrient-dense dish that is so close to being in its natural state. It's great for you. If you all, anybody who has followed me over the last, year and a half now, you know that I am a big proponent of not eating processed food, a lot of processed food and things like that. Every once in a while, it's okay to indulge, but we want that to be rare as opposed to being the norm. Something else, when people are transitioning away from meat into a plant-based lifestyle, they kind of use a lot of processed food as a crutch. So for example, if you ate real bacon for breakfast, now you're eating vegan bacon for breakfast. If you used to have cold cuts for lunch, now you're having vegan cold cuts for lunch. And while it may be better than eating meat protein, animal protein, it is not best. And we're working towards what is best. And what is best is food as close to its natural state as possible. For some reason, we believe that a meal is not a meal unless we have some kind of animal protein on the side, whether it be a piece of fish, a piece of chicken, a steak, or something like that. I'm here to tell you that you can have a completely delicious meal and not need the meat, not miss the meat at all, as long as you are very deliberate about how you season and you prepare your vegetables. So this evening, we are going to prepare an oven roasted cabbage wedge. It's going to have a Moroccan lentil salad on it and super creamy, tangy tahini. So we're going to North Africa with this one. And also anybody who follows me knows that I am crazy about Africa and the African diaspora, and I always try to incorporate some flavors in there. So let's talk about the ingredients this evening. We have our cabbage. This is kind of a smaller head, and I chose a smaller head because it's easier to work with. Now, if you're somebody who's, really good with it, you can go larger. But I got a small one. This is going to be cut into 8 pieces. And I think it's actually great because it's just the right amount on the side. Somebody may not want a big piece of cabbage, but if you have like a small little quarter of it and it's deliciously seasoned and prepared, they're more likely to go for it if it's that size. So we've got some cabbage here. We've got some fresh parsley, lemon. One thing I forgot to put in the recipe that you all saw was mint. There is also some fresh mint here. We've got scallions, we've got garlic, we've got some smoked paprika, garlic, onion powder, black pepper, some olive oil, salt, ras el hanout, which is going to go into our lentils. This is such a North African scent and spice. If you smell it and if you taste it, once you taste it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's super warm and comforting. And it's very exclusive to that part of the world and that culture. So ras el hanout. We've got some minced red onions, some beautiful grape tomatoes, and the star of our salad are these French lentils. I love these lentils. I have cooked them ahead of time in water that was slightly salted. And I chose these lentils because they're higher in protein, they're firmer, they're smaller, and they have a peppery flavor. And since I'm mixing this up in a salad, I wanted something that was going to still maintain its maintain itself. It's not going to get all mushy. So that's why I chose this, again, because it's firmer. So these are French lentils. Then we have some tahini that I'm going to mix with a little bit of fresh garlic, salt and pepper, a little bit of agave to give it some sweetness, and we're going to have a delicious dish. So let's get started on this cabbage. Now, I said in the recipe that you can also use red cabbage. It's not going to be as pretty. Maybe you won't mind. Use what you like. You can go either way. So when you're cutting this, what you have to be sure to do is you want to leave the stalk intact. You do not want to cut this off, because if you do, everything's going to fall apart. So you have to be very careful as you're cutting this to make sure that you maintain the core. And I've already taken off some outer leaves. There we go. Okay, so this is cut in half. You see that? All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut it in half again. And you're going to lose some leaves in the process. I'm going to cut it again in half, being sure to cut so that the stalk remains intact. And see, this is a fourth. This is a little big. You know, if you're a cabbage lover, you might like it, but if you're making this for people and you're trying to convince them to try it, I would suggest you go a little smaller. So we're going to cut this in half again. So we're going to end up with 8 pieces. Let's do this one. I turned it this way so I can make sure that the root is remaining intact. So there's 4 there. And then we're going to cut this in 2 again. You can also cut this like a steak. You can cut it in rounds if you would like to. And you know, you're cutting right along the vein right here. There we go. So we have 8 pieces that are equal in size. And if you've been following me, you know I'm going to say they need to be equal size. Why? They need to be equal size because then they will cook evenly and it's going to look beautiful at the end for your presentation. If you've got one piece bigger than the other, it's not going to cook evenly. So one person at the table is going to have a perfectly oven roasted piece of cabbage. Somebody else, their cabbage is going to be a little raw. You don't want that. So let's make sure that we cut them as evenly as possible. So there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either use parchment paper or you can spray a cookie sheet, a baking sheet. I'm using parchment paper. You don't have to. So I'm just going to put this aside while I work on the marinade that's going to go on this. You're going to have a few things that are going to fall off. Don't worry about it. So we've got our 8 pieces there. Cleaning off our board. And we're going to work on our marinade. Now, this marinade calls for about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. We are not going to use everything, but I like to have and not need, than need and not have. If you don't want to use this type of olive oil, you can use spray oil. There's no problem with doing that. All you would do then is mix all your spices, sprinkle it on the cabbage, and then you would spray it with the oil. The reason why we need oil is because oil is going to help conduct the heat that is going to crisp up and beautifully roast this cabbage. If you don't have some kind of oil, it's not going to work. But you don't have to use this. You can use spray oil. So I'm putting that oil in there. I said we are using 2 teaspoons of garlic powder and onion powder. That's what this is. We're using A teaspoon of smoked paprika. We want to give it some smokiness and some warmth. We're going to use a pinch of salt and a pinch of black pepper. You don't have to use black pepper. You can use red pepper. And then we're going to put some garlic in here. So I've got a few cloves of garlic. We did use powdered garlic, but we're going to use some fresh garlic as well. And there you go. And we're just going to mix this up. Go. And we're going to use a brush. I like to use a brush because I feel like you actually end up using less than if you poured it on. So we're just going to brush it lightly on one side, flip it over, and then brush it on the other side. So just like that. I like to brush a little bit on the back side as well. See how easy this is to do? Okay. This smells yummy already. And because of the way that cabbage is composed, it's already going in between the layers. So that's good. It's going to get all through in there. It's not just going to stay on the top. Okay. That's one side. Now we're going to flip it gently. Flipping it gently. And now we're going to do the other side. Our oven is preheated at 425 degrees. We want this high heat. You can coax some of the garlic out of there. It's going to want to kind of stay to the bottom, but you coax it out there. Last little bit. There you go. So we made our marinade and then we brushed it on both sides. Did it on one side and then gently flipped it over and put it on the other one. So now this is going to go into the oven for 30 to 35 minutes at 425 degrees. Halfway through, we're going to flip it. All right, so now let's work on our salad and our tahini spread. So in our salad, we've got a cup of these delicious lentils that are going to go right into the bowl. We've got about a quarter cup of onion, red onion. Now, as I've told you all before, you don't have to use everything. If you're not big on onion, if you don't necessarily like raw onion, feel free to saute it a little bit to take a little bit of that edge off, let it cool, and then you drop it in here. I'm going to take some of my parsley that I've already rinsed, and I'm going to chop that up. Just gonna like coarsely chop it. It doesn't have to be fine. It smells so good. It smells so fresh and vibrant. And you know what I say also, I love to have all these different flavors in one bite. And that's what we're doing with this parsley. So the parsley goes in our bowl. We're going to use some scallion, or some people call it green onion. Just going to cut a little bit of this. Okay, that's going in there. Now we're going to use a little bit of our mint. This is obviously optional, but I love it because it really plays into that North African, Mediterranean flavor profile. So I like to add mint to these types of dishes. And we're just going to carefully cut it as thin as we can. And then we're going to go back over it, kind of mince it up a bit, just like that. And that goes into our bowl as well. We are going to cut up some of our tomatoes. We're just going to cut these in half. You don't need to do them in fourths. Half is fine. And we're just using different colors. I picked up some that have like yellow and orange and green. One of the things we always say in the plant-based world is to eat the rainbow. So we're putting the rainbow in this bowl. And we're probably going to cut a total of about a cup. If you're a tomato lover, you can add more. If you're not a tomato lover, you don't have to add it at all. You could use bell peppers in place of tomato if you wanted to. Let's do a couple more, another orange one. I'm going to do another green one. Okay. And we're going to do a little bit of lemon zest. I love adding some zest to these dishes because it just has a certain brightness that it adds to it. Just a little bit. There we go. And then we're going to squeeze a little bit of lemon juice over this as well. And we're going to do a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. And now we're just going to mix this up. It smells yummy. It looks beautiful. And let me just taste a bit. That's actually perfect. So we're going to set this aside. And now we're going to work on our tahini dressing or tahini sauce. I love tahini. My husband's not big on tahini at all. I love tahini. I love hummus. Mediterranean food, North African food is something that I can eat all the time. Okay, so for this, we're going to use about a quarter cup of tahini. Now, when you open up your tahini, oftentimes the oil has risen to the top. So what I like to do, once I open it, is just shake it around. Do not pour the oil off. You know, I have a funny story. As a child, my mother would buy natural peanut butter. And as soon as she got it, she would pour all the oil off. She didn't understand. I don't think she understood that it was supposed to be mixed in. I think she thought, oh, it's oil, it's fatty, get rid of it. But what ended up happening was it was nearly impossible to spread that peanut butter, get it out of the container, let alone spread it. We used to have bread, and somebody may understand this and be able to relate to this. we would have bread that would like tear and there'd be a big chunk of peanut butter on our sandwich. It was never smooth because she poured the oil off. So with your tahini, do not pour the oil off. Make sure it is well mixed. So we're going to use about a 1/4 cup of tahini. We're going to use about a tablespoon of lemon juice. We've got a lemon that's already cut. I'm going to use my hand so no seeds get in there. And they still did get in there. I have a spoon. Get those seeds out of there. There we go. We're going to use a little bit of agave. It's about a tablespoon there. We're going to use a couple cloves of garlic. Now, this garlic may be a little pungent for you. So there's a couple things you can do. You have to use garlic in your tahini sauce. So one of the things you can do if you don't want it pungent, you can throw it in the oven and some aluminum foil, just wrap up in foil and put it in there, while your cabbage is roasting. You can put it in there in aluminum foil, take that after about 5-10 minutes, and it's going to take just enough of the bite off of that. I like the bite, so I'm not doing that. I'm just going to put these 3 or 4 small garlic cloves in here. I'm going to go directly in here. Okay. Once again, a little bit of salt and pepper, just a pinch. Just a pinch. And I am going to use my whisk for this, and I'm going to add some water to thin it. So start mixing it, and I'm going to add just enough water. And what you'll notice as you add water, it's actually going to change the color. It's going to become more of a creamy color. You want to add enough water to get it to kind of a dressing consistency. You all can see what's happening now. See that? Okay, I'm going to add just a little more water to this because I want that drizzle. I want it to easily drizzle over our cabbage and our lentil salad. Okay, I think we've got enough here. Now let me taste it to make sure I don't need to add anything else. That's really good. Just a pinch more of salt. Just a pinch. And that ought to do it. All right. So let's clean up a little bit. We are ready to grab our cabbage out of the oven. And we are ready to plate. So after about 30 to 35 minutes, this is what your cabbage is going to look like. Beautifully roasted. Now don't be put off by some of this, crispiness. Some people like it, some don't. I like it. So if you like it, you put it on the plate. If you don't, you can just carefully maneuver the leaves on the outside, cut them off, but be careful because you don't want this to fall apart. And in a moment, I'm going to show you that these are browned on both sides. So this one, for example, let's see, which one can I pick up easily? Okay, so this is the underside. Look at that. It's beautiful. And we're just going to lay these on our platter. You can put these individually on plates if you'd like. You know me, I always love a beautiful plate of veggies in the center of the table. And I promise you, once you see how this is plated, people are going to be drawn to this. Let's see how this tastes. That's yummy. Delicious. All right, folk. Let's get ready to rumble. We are going to put this lovely French lentil salad. Able to see what I'm doing? Is it clear enough? Let's see. Let me back up a little bit. There we go. Let's move these things out the way because I want you all to see the magic go down. Let's move all these things out the way. Oh my goodness. I just realized I didn't put the ras el hanout in the French lentil salad. And it tasted yummy without it. So now let's mix that in. Sorry about that, folk. The ras el hanout needs to go in here because that's going to bring everything together. All righty. There we go. Now we're cooking with grease. All right. So, over the top of this, we are going to spread this lovely French lentil salad that has fresh parsley and mint and tomatoes and onions and scallions. That's going to go on top. We're going to leave just a little bit for after we drizzle the tahini. And now we've got this yummy, creamy tahini that has a bit of sweetness because of the agave that we added to it. Let's see. Let's put that plate right there. And we're just going to go like this. We're just going to go like this. Ooh, that looks good. And folk, let me tell you, you can always have some sauce on the side because people will likely want more. I'm just going to add just a few more tomatoes on top of that. And then what you would do, get my knife out of here and my cutting board. You would serve this with some wedges of lemon as well. Right in the center. Okay, so this is our, you really can't even see the cabbage. That's hilarious because I put so much on it. But this is which one are we going to? Oven roasted cabbage with a Moroccan lentil salad and tangy, zippy tahini sauce. 100% plant-based, nutrient-dense, protein-rich. These lentils have more protein than your regular lentils. We've got tahini. This is going to be a gut-feeling, heartwarming, comforting, delicious dish that is good for you. Most importantly, I always say that I make delicious food that just so happens to be good for you. This is one of those things. So thank you for joining me this week. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.